Hello, my bariatric care friends. It is good to be joining you this afternoon, even though it's kind of a cruddy day outside. But I guess we have to have those so we can have that amazing spring that's coming up. And we want you in good shape when that spring does spring itself, when it has sprung. So I hope you are enjoying the bariatric care videos. I would love to hear from you guys. Don't be shy. Please give me some feedback. Let me know what topics you would like. You can always email my personal email at cstapletonphd@gmail.com. And again, I would love to hear from you. What you like, what you'd like more of. And today I'm going to be going through a worksheet with you that I developed to help you process some of what we talked about last week, which is very important in terms of keeping your weight off over the long haul, which is what you want to do so that you can reach your goals and maintain your goals of improved health and living a better quality of life. As a post op, you want to get rid of the health comorbidities. You want to be out there in the world doing the things that you want to do, that you enjoy. So, if you remember earlier in the week, we talked about autonomy being basically a person who makes their own decisions. So, an autonomous person is an independent person. An autonomous person is somebody who relies on their own judgment, who chooses, who is self directed, and has the freedom to make decisions that are in according to their goals. So, if you remember a long, long, long time ago, and if you haven't listened to the podcast or the bariatric care video about meaningful matters, then I would listen to that one again. But your meaningful matters are, why are you doing all this? My meaningful matters are, in addition to getting rid of yeah, then you know that word, health problems, and living the life you want to live, getting out there and doing the things you want to do. You're doing this so that you can enjoy your family, enjoy your grandkids, get out there and play, travel, bungee jump. Do people bungee jump anymore? I don't know. Zip line. What are your goals? What are your reasons for getting this weight off, for having weight loss surgery? And hopefully, those are still some of the reasons you want to work hard to keep that weight off. Maybe you want to revise your goals. I don't know. But we behave in a way, hopefully, that moves us toward reaching our goals. So, an autonomous person does this. They say, I'm going to make my own decision about this. You guys can all, you know, after a Weight Watchers meeting, you guys can all go to the buffet, but I'm going to make my own decision and I'm going to stay in line with my goals of maintaining my healthy weight. Whatever it is, in relation to whether it's your eating, your exercise behaviors, your finances, your spiritual life, your relationships, you make the decisions that are best for you, that are in line with your own values, in line with your own goals. And I will tell you something that's a little aside, but many years ago, when I was going through my own deep therapy, and as I got into the professional world of working in recovery from addictions, what I learned is that a lot of times our addictions, the compulsion to do certain things so we don't have to feel, so we numb ourselves, so those compulsive behaviors that lead us toward acting out in our addictions are the same ones that keep us moving away from our goals. So when we're active in an addiction, we typically move away from our goals rather than toward our goals. So you got to remember that if you are active in an addiction, it's going to be really hard to maintain autonomy, to be strong enough to make your own decisions, to act on your best behalf. Because if you're active in your food addiction, you're going to be more likely to succumb to the drive through, to succumb to people going, come on, you can just have one. Come on in the break room and celebrate so and so's birthday with us. Have some cake. What's the big deal? If you are in recovery from your addiction, meaning you're not being swayed by the addictive behavior itself, you're abstinent from whatever it is that keeps you having more of a struggle with your brain when we're active in our addiction, if we're drinking, if we're using, if we're gambling, if we're shopping too much, if we're eating too much sugar, and that causes us to have foggy brain, then we're not going to be able to make our best decisions. So if you're an addict, you want to be in recovery, you have to have sobriety or be refraining from whatever your addictive behavior or substance is. Make you more likely to be autonomous, to be independent, to not be influenced by your substance or your behavior or other people. So we want to act with autonomy. We want to be independent. We want to make good decisions for ourselves, regardless of whether other people in our homes, our lives, our offices are making healthy, responsible decisions in their lives regarding food or whatever it might happen to be. So, are you autonomous? And are you making decisions by yourself that align with your goals? The second thing we talked about was assuming responsibility in life, being an adult, setting boundaries for yourself, maybe saying no for yourself, setting boundaries with other people, making your home a very safe environment, making your car a safe environment, making your office space a safe environment. What I mean by that, for in relation to your weight loss journey, is making sure there's not crap in the house for you to be tempted by. A lot of people struggle with nighttime eating. They'll do great during the day, but nighttime comes around and they're munching and they're searching and they're scavenging around looking for something unhealthy to eat. If you don't have it in your home, there's a much greater likelihood that you're going to be successful in your quest to follow your goals that align with your values. So these two things don't always go together. Just because I make my own decisions doesn't mean you act responsibly. So you may make the decision that, you want to be more active, more physically active, exercise more frequently. It doesn't mean you assume the responsibility for yourself to get yourself up off the couch, those walking shoes on, and get out the door. So you may be making the calls, you may be calling the shots, but unless you're taking responsibility for yourself and acting as an adult, you might not be following through. So I create a little bit of a worksheet here, and I'm going to put it on your Facebook pages and on your websites for bariatric care. And just go through it and really get to your heart of hearts. Be super honest with yourself and just go through this list. And it's a very minimal list. You could make this list a lot longer, and I would encourage you to do so. Maybe take it to your support group and talk it out with a bunch of friends. Oh my gosh, I talked to a woman today, and this was incredible. She was telling me that she and a group of her friends, and not all of them are having surgery, but they all want to be healthier versions of themselves, physically in terms of what they're eating and physically in terms of their level of activity. So this group of women gets together once a week on Zoom and they talk about what they're doing, how they're assuming responsibility in their lives for their actions. So if you can't afford to go to therapy, or you think you can't, or you literally can't for whatever reason, then create your own support group. Create your own little group of people who get together and talk about honestly what's keeping me from doing this and help one another take a step forward and work toward assuming better responsibility to getting what they say they want. So take this to a group of friends, take it to a support group, do it yourself, do it with your family, whatever. But it's a great, great little sheet to help you look at, in what ways am I being autonomous, independent, and making decisions for myself that are in line with my personal values and goals? And in what ways am I taking a responsibility to make those things happen? And remember, just because you may be making your own decisions, you might not be taking the responsibility. So I just made a list and I had you check it off. And then this is some food for thought. And it's only by becoming more aware of ourselves and finding out where we need to, bolster our support or ask for help outside, or, buckle down on ourselves and take a little more adult responsibility, that we're going to make these changes. So This worksheet is just designed to help you look at the areas in which you feel pretty strong and areas in which you know you could use a little bolster. So, in what areas of your life do you make your own decisions? Do you make your own decisions financially? Or if you're in a couple, do you guys make your decisions together? It doesn't mean you don't have any input. Or are you in a relationship maybe where that other person makes all the decisions for you financially? And is that something you're okay with? Or is that something you want to take more responsibility for in that relationship? So this is not a criticism or how you should do it. It's just a way for you to get to look at these things. And I just have a little scale, 1 to 5. I don't take any, I don't assume any autonomy, or 5, I assume complete autonomy. So look at your finances and just ask yourself, is this something I'm comfortable with, or how would I like it to be different? Same with your work and career. Are you autonomous in terms of how you chose your career or where you're currently working? I'll give you an example of how I think some people are not so autonomous in this regard. When I worked at the medical college, and these were young people, they were like in their late 20s, early 30s, and a lot of them were in medical school or dental school or pursuing a nursing degree or whatever it was because that's what all the women in our family did, or that's what we all do. We're all doctors or we're all nurses or we're all dentists. And, that's the only way my parents were going to pay for my education is if I followed suit. And I don't want to be a dentist. I don't want to be a doctor. I want to be a computer graphic designer, whatever. Are you making your decisions autonomously in terms of what you do? Because you're going to be happier in your career if you do something that you enjoy rather than if you're doing something because somebody else told you to, or that's the only way you would get your education paid for. Just again, not a criticism, but something for you to think about. Or if you're older and further along in the journey, you may say, you know what, I didn't have autonomy when it came to creating my career. Maybe it's something I want to revisit. All right, social activities. Are you autonomous in making your decision about things you want to do? Maybe, again, maybe you're in a relationship and your partner likes outdoor activities and you can't stand them. Do you just go along with them? Or do you pout? Or do you say, you know what, you do those and I'm going to do these? Where's that on your scale for you personally? What about physical exercise? Do you make the decisions about whether or not you exercise? Do you make the decisions about what kinds of exercise do you do? Or again, does somebody else make those decisions for you? Or do you go along with what they like to do as opposed to what you might want to do? What about your spiritual life? My belief is that we are a whole person. We have to look at all areas of our lives. Even if you're focused on your weight loss journey and keeping that weight off, these other areas may come into play. So, where are you in terms of your spiritual development, if that's something that's of importance to you? What about your relationships? How's your relationship? Do you feel like you can make decisions in your relationship, or do you defer to the other person to keep the peace? Or are you afraid because maybe there's some temper issues or, violent issues or fear of abuse or whatever it might be? Or do you make decisions for yourself? And you might want to look at that and say, if I'm not where I want to be, what changes do I need to make to become closer to the kind of person I want to be in my relationships? And then what about your eating decisions? Do you make the decisions or do you find ways to pass the buck? Well, I was gonna eat healthy, but my spouse brought in this, oh my gosh, they just brought in my favorite foods, or they brought in takeout, or they brought me something home from the Dairy Queen, or they brought me something home from, the fast food place. And so, well, I intended to. Well, if you're assuming autonomy, regardless of what that other person does, you're going to say, I'm making my decisions. I'm sorry you brought that for me, but I'm going to throw it away. That would also be assuming responsibility for yourself. So, how much autonomy are you making? Are you saying, oh, I don't care what we do, you decide? So, you're not being autonomous in the decisions you make. And then I made a subscale of things related to your eating decisions and really want you to take a look at Am I making my own decisions? And if I'm not, is that something I need to do? Because this is your journey. Even though you may have support from your children, your parents, your spouse, your partner, your coworkers, your friends, they're not responsible. And it's easy for people to find ways to blame other people for falling off the track, falling out of the wagon, or however they put it. But you are in charge of making your own decisions as a healthy adult. You're also responsible for making them happen. So even if you say to your support people or your loved ones, I would prefer if you didn't bring this stuff into the house, or I would, ask you not to bring me something from those places if you go there. So you're telling people what you want, you're assuming responsibility, you're being autonomous, but you can't make them do it. They may or they may not. So if they choose not to follow through and, go along with your request, then you have to assume responsibility and say, I asked you not to do this and I hate to waste money, but I'm throwing it outside in the garbage, or I'm dumping it down the drain and turning the disposal on because I have to take responsibility for what goes in my mouth. You may choose not to honor my requests, but I will assume responsibility for not eating it, even if you bring something to me. And that can be really hard to do, but you need to take a good long look. So, are you assuming responsibility for your finances, or is it easier to say, nah, I don't keep any track? Well, that's fine if you don't blame the other person who does keep track for you not knowing or for you wondering where all the money goes. So if it's an issue for you, then you need to take whatever kind of responsibility you need to take to feel like you're a partner in this or assuming responsibility. A lot of people after weight loss surgery find themselves spending a whole lot of money in lieu of going out to eat, or so they may be spending a lot of money shopping for new clothes or just spending money because it gives them that same dopamine release that they would get when they would overeat. So keep in mind that you don't want to switch from one unhealthy behavior to get the dopamine release, the high, the good feeling that food gave you, or to distract you from other things going on in your life that may need your attention, like an unhealthy relationship or worries about your kids or stress about your job. You want to learn to deal with life by being a responsible, healthy adult who goes, you know what? I don't want to deal with this, but I'm going to because it needs to be resolved. I'm going to talk to my kid. I'm going to talk to my spouse. I'm going to talk to my mom. I'm going to do whatever I need to do, but I'm not going to eat at it. I'm not going to do something else that would not be healthy for me. Because if you remember, a healthy coping skill means doesn't hurt you, doesn't hurt anybody else. And if you're spending a bunch of money, that may hurt other people in your family. It's easy to do and it makes you feel better. So a healthy coping skill isn't going to be something else like drinking if it's going to cause you other problems or spending too much money or, you know, spending 3 hours on social media. Assuming responsibility in your life means dealing with what comes up as it comes up and not hiding or running away from it. So, are you assuming responsibility for finances, for your career? If you're not happy in your career, are you saying, then I'm going to find something else? Or I'm going to go back to school? Or I'm going to find a way to make this happen? Are you assuming responsibility? Or are you playing victim? Don't be a victim. Because really, in our adult lives, we're very seldom victims. All right, social activities. Well, I would like to do this or that or this or that, but my kids, they're just so busy and I just don't have time, or my husband doesn't want to, and so we don't. And I resent him for that, or I resent her for that. No excuses. Don't make excuses. If you want to do something, then you do it and you say, it doesn't mean I'm not going to hang out with you. It doesn't mean I'm putting you on the back burner. It just means I'm going to do something healthy for myself. Physical exercise. You may say, I'm in charge. I'm autonomous. I'm making the decision that I'm going to be, I'm going to walk 4 days a week, or I'm going to go to the gym 3 days a week and do yoga 2 days a week, whatever it happens to be. You've made that decision. So nobody's saying you have to exercise this way. But then you've got to be assuming responsibility to get yourself up and following through to do it. Eh, requires so much adulting and so much discipline and so much habit making. But if you want what you say you want, then you got to get the help to do the things that it requires to do it. None of this is easy. That's a given. All of it is easier said than done. Those aren't excuses for not doing it. You signed up for this program. You signed up to do this surgery. You knew what it required before you did it. So there are no excuses. And if you're having trouble, then you need to get help to be able to follow through. Same with your spiritual life, your relationships. If your relationships aren't going well, then you're responsible to get help for yourself or ask them to join you or get help together. Learn what you need to do. If it's setting boundaries, if it's learning communication skills, if it's learning negotiation, what do you need to learn? And assume the responsibility to find the resources to get what you need. Now, let's jump right down here to this behavior list for eating behaviors and see how you're doing in terms of assuming responsibility. Let's talk about grocery shopping for a minute. If going to the grocery store is really next to impossible for you to get through without adding unnecessary items to your grocery store, are you assuming responsibility to find another way to get your groceries? If you're ordering online and picking up, but you're still struggling adding things to your cart that you don't need, even if it's online, then you give a list of things and you ask somebody, please get online and order these for me, and I'll go pick them up. Or if you have trouble going to the store to pick them up, even because then you get out of the store and go get some things you don't need or want really, then have them delivered. Yes, it costs more money. We're talking about your life. You got to decide how you're going to assume responsibility for getting what you need to meet your goals. So the decision to cook or eat out, yeah, it's easier to eat out. Yeah, it's faster. It's less healthy. It's going to result in eating who knows what. You need to assume responsibility for if you don't want to cook, then have healthy prepackaged things or have healthy ingredients and just go home and throw together a salad or have healthy food around like beef jerky or a healthy frozen meal, which is fine unless it's loaded with sugar or simple carbs. There are a lot of frozen meals that have no rice in them, no pasta in them, and they're perfectly suitable for a post-op patient. But you've got to choose. All right. What about the preparing ahead for busy day? You know it's going to be a busy day, or you got kids who have 17 activities after school. Are you just going to say, "Well, geez, what was I supposed to do? I just had to go through fast food, or I just had to eat at the ball game"? No, you don't. You can take a cooler with you, and if you're assuming responsibility for your own life as a healthy adult, pack that cooler, take it with you, prepare ahead. If you're going to a family event or a work event or some event where you know there's going to be a whole bunch of unhealthy food that's going to tempt you, are you assuming responsibility to eat a full, healthy, bariatric friendly meal before you go so you're less tempted? These are things that only you can do, and only you can assume the responsibility for doing them. As I say at the end of every video, your health, your responsibility. That means you got to know what you need to do, and you got to take the responsibility for doing it because ain't nobody going to do it for you, right? So you've got to decide, yeah, I make my own decisions. I'm autonomous. I'm independent. But am I assuming the responsibility as a healthy adult to do these things? And these are both. Remember, the importance of these is that you want to keep your weight off for a long time. And these are two of the skills that researchers say are necessary for you to be able to do that. So if you're struggling with making your own decisions or being autonomous, or if you're struggling with being that healthy adult who does make it happen, then you need to get help in whatever way. It could be a health coach, it could be a therapist, it could be a support group, it could be a group of friends that get together and talk about these things. Doesn't matter how you do it, but you got to do it because, as I always say, it is your health, it is your responsibility. So we've got one more item on the list of predictors for healthy weight maintenance, and we'll go over that one next week, and then we'll move on. So I look forward to meeting with you next week. And remember, your bariatric journey continues over the weekends. We're heading into a weekend. Make sure it's healthy. Set yourself up to be that healthy, responsible adult who takes charge of making sure what needs to happen happens. All right. See you.